What was the cringiest thing you did in your first relationship? High school girlfriend and I used to make out on her bed with the door locked while her parents were out there, under the impression that we were studying. Heavy kissing, and at some point she says, "Cut that out, your breath stinks." I started kissing her neck and she slowly wrapped her legs around my thigh. A couple of minutes later starts breathing heavily. Couple of minutes after that, her legs tighten around my thigh, and a couple of minutes after that, she suddenly goes rigid, eyes roll up until I see whites, rapid breathing, exhaling heavily. I panic. And this is my moronic thought process, since all the blood's left my brain. She's choking. I should give her CPR, but she said no kissing her mouth. So I close my lips around her nose and blow like a trumpet. She starts coughing immediately, but she's too polite to cuss me out, says she needs a drink of water and leaves the room. We continued to go out for about 6 years after that. In conclusion, didn't realize girlfriend was having a great time, thought she was dying, tried to save her by blowing sewer breath straight into her nose. I'm an idiot. I lost my virginity to my first girlfriend. I was about 16 at the time and was invited to stay the night because her dad was on a business trip. I was excited because we'd talked a bunch about doing it, and I was finally ready to lose my virginity. I get to her house and we're straight to action. She pulls down my pants, and my eggplant is as limp as a top ramen noodle. She did mouth stuff for about 30 minutes until I could at least get half a chub. I got on top and started ramming away. I didn't really know what to do with my hands, and at the time I know that people pull hair while doing the deed. So I crap you not, I stared down at her and take my 2 hands full of her hair on both sides and just pull in a downward thrust while I'm ramming away. Sometimes I think of this moment and want to disappear. I almost completely erased this memory. So I was young and I had my first boyfriend. We were experimenting in the bedroom, and I really wanted him to think my hoo-ha tasted nice, so I would literally rub strawberry fricking flavored lip gloss into my vajayjay. There's no way he didn't know. I thought it was such a genius idea that I had to share it with my fellow women. So I wrote it down and passed a note in class to one of my friends. It dropped on the floor and all the boys read it and started screaming laughing. Strawberry Lips was my new name, and I cried for a week. This was with a girl I dated in high school. My dad was getting drunk at a block party, so I got the idea to take his ski boat and go for a romantic boat ride. So we park in the middle of the lake and start making out and stuff. We notice our feet getting wet. The boat was sinking, so I start freaking out, bailing water out with cups, sopping it up with my t-shirt and wringing it out of the boat, just freaking panicking. Right before I accept the fate of my dad's $12,000 inboard motor ski boat and calm down, I remember that I didn't put back the drain plug before dropping it in the water, so I replaced it and drove back. I think aiming for getting laid and nearly sinking your dad's boat is a pretty unsurpassed level of financial disaster on a first date, although I'm sure we'll see many cases of emotional and reputational destruction as we proceed through the topic. Started dating 3 months before sophomore year ended. Once summer started, I completely ghosted her. Skipped to the first week of junior year, and I thought we were still together. You can imagine how she reacted when I approached her for a kiss. The shame is still real to this day. Told my first real girlfriend that I'm glad she wasn't the most beautiful girl in the world, so I didn't have to worry about every guy trying to steal her. The letters I've written. Oh, those letters. 15-year-old me thought he was deep and romantic. He wasn't. I hope they don't exist anymore. She started to ignore me at school. This was like maybe 1 or 2 weeks after we started dating. I called her house like 6 or 7 times one afternoon after school until her mum picked up, who was basically furious because I'd been hanging on the line. I explained to her that Alexa was ignoring my calls, and I hear in the background, "Alexa, why aren't you answering the phone?" To which she replies, "Because he's weird and he just keeps calling." I hung up the phone and went to my room. I carved her name in my wall with a pen. I still cringe about it to this day. I was walking her home, anticipating kissing her for the first time at her doorstep, and I kept licking my lips because I didn't want to kiss her with a dry mouth. Halfway to her house, she looks at me and says, "Stop doing that." I realized I probably looked really creepy. Broke up with her because my best friend told me to. We were perfectly fine together, but I guess I kinda worshipped the guy and his advice. He later tried asking her out when we split. We were all 14 to 15. I'd honestly forgotten this memory until I saw the topic. My first date to a movie, we saw Titanic because that can only end well. We, as horny youngsters, aren't watching the movie, but instead making out and moaning in probably the third row of a packed theater. I'd never made out before, I assumed moaning was involved. So cringy and so gross. My first kiss in the movies was at The Bounty Hunter. It was interesting because I also got my first BJ a few minutes later in the same spot. I remember 4 things. 1. My parents and her parents were 2 rows in front of us. 2. The looks of disgust on the old couple's face 4 seats down. 3. She swallowed and it was way too much sensation for 16-year-old me. 4. Gerard Butler was in it. Declined staying the night because I was, and I quote, wearing a skirt and I didn't want it to ride up while I was sleeping. I licked her face to be random. God, that hurts to reimagine. Please don't mention hybridized eating utensils. He took me to Olive Garden and bought me that meat lover's lasagna. I'm pretty sure that's what it was called, and when we got back to his place, I wanted to show him how appreciative I was, so I gave him my first BJ. Turned out I wasn't ready for that job and I threw up the entire lasagna on his junk. God help me, I can't believe I'm finally sharing this story. That is horrible, but I'm sure there's a meat lover's joke in there somewhere. After I saw Eric propose to Donna on that 70s show, I went out and got a 25-cent ring from the local Pizza Hut and proposed. At school, in front of everyone. I was 16. I'm glad you could all share a cringe with me. To answer the burning questions, she did say yes. We didn't last, though. Sorry, no happy ending here, just teenagers doing impulsive things. I tried to defend her honor, and I got the crap kicked out of me by 3 guys. I earned cred for taking a beating, but she thought we should just be friends after witnessing that. We took a break, and I posted a video to Creep by Radiohead with the caption, "For that special someone." Oh, I almost cringed off my chair writing this. I was 17. We had just had a fight. I drove to his house and blasted "Scars" by Papa Roach from my car and just stood awkwardly at the end of the driveway waiting for him to come out. I really wish this weren't true. He did come out, but only to tell me I'm overreacting and he'll see me at school on Monday. Be right back, gonna go curl under the blankets to hide from the memories. I let him play with me down there at school with no idea the people at the next table could see. I told her I loved her within the first 24 hours at the school parking lot. My friend accidentally whimpered, "I love you," as he climaxed while losing his virginity. Talk of the school, apparently. She showed me a half-undressed pic and I was too embarrassed to look at it. After the first date of going to the movies, I never put my arm around her because I was too scared. We sat in my driveway and she didn't say goodnight because she was waiting for me to kiss her. I did nothing, so she finally kissed me. In defense mode, I licked my lips all the way around my tongue like Scooby-Doo does with the cotton candy in the theme song intro. I even did the kill me. I hit my girlfriend with my car. It was a complete accident. We're still friends and it's a story that still comes up in conversation every now and again. Look, people, the author here has his flaws. What are they? Oh, I don't know. They sing in the shower. Sometimes they spend too much time volunteering. Occasionally, he'll hit his girlfriend with his car. So sue him. No, don't sue him. That's the opposite of the point I'm trying to make. Well, she said that she thought we'd be better off just being friends, so I decided that I needed to do some big grand gesture to prove my love. It always worked in the movies, so what could go wrong? I practiced singing the song for weeks on my ukulele and figured that I would wait until after her softball practice was done and surprise her. I sang "You're Beautiful" by James Blunt. I made sure a couple of days before that I completely copied his hairstyle in the video. Except because it was 2006, I dyed it completely black and tried to do an emo version of it. It's a freaking miracle anyone talks to me after that. Obviously, it didn't work. My only saving grace was that it was a drizzly April day. I thought that just made it even more romantic, and the only people who actually saw it was her and 2 of her teammates. They looked at me like I had 3 heads when I was singing, and then the second I finished, she turned bright red and yelled, "What the frick?" And her teammates laughed for a solid 5 minutes. I was so mortified I couldn't move. Some points. I wasn't a terrible singer, but I wasn't good. It didn't help that I sometimes added intentional breaks in my voice to make the song more emotionally powerful or something dumb like that. After I was done and stood in horror as her friends laughed at me and she stormed away, I kind of did a sad George Michael-esque walk in the rain to my car as I contemplated what would be easier, moving school districts or just driving off a cliff. We weren't friends after that. It was super embarrassing for her, and everyone teased her for months by singing James Blunt songs to her. I definitely had it worse, but high school kids are jerks. It also didn't help that about 2 weeks after, we were assigned as lab partners and she raised her hand and asked the teacher if she could switch partners, and the whole class snickered. It seems sweet reading the story, but really it was super creepy and I put her in an impossible spot. If anything positive came from it, I never had any troubles approaching women at bars because I already knew what the worst possible thing that could happen was, so it was only uphill from there. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. My first makeout session with someone was with my first girlfriend. We were in her bedroom, turned out the lights, and went at it on the floor of her room. After a while, I feel something wet on my face. I didn't want to stop, so I just ignored it and carried on. She noticed it too and decided to turn on the light because something is really wet on our faces. The light comes on and turns out I'd had a massive nosebleed and there was blood everywhere. I was covered in it, she was covered in it, and there were bloodstains all over her room. If that wasn't embarrassing enough, when she went to the bathroom to clean up, her mum caught her in the hallway. She saw the blood and immediately screamed. Her assumption was that I was beating her daughter up and I got chucked out of the house. Took a lot of time and explaining for me to show my face there again. I also lost my virginity to the same girl to the song Kool and the Gang's Celebrate. That was cringy as heck too. I used to take laps around the playground and slap stickers on her butt. I don't know what I was thinking. I got us matching dog tags with our anniversary on it after dating for around 6 months, and I would secretly get very sad when he wouldn't wear his. Guilty of this too. After we broke up, he posted a video on Facebook of his friend throwing it in the air so he could shoot it. My God, I cried a little. I was 17. For the record, I grew up in Mississippi. Super American in the country. I was upset when it happened and I didn't even respond to him. Should have saved the video to make a meme, but I don't have a Facebook anymore and it was a long time ago. It was pretty funny looking back. I was super shy back in the day and I really liked this guy who had weirdly flirted with me in one of our classes. He told me I looked like some random celebrity when I wore my hair down and how hot she was, so I never wore my hair up again for the entirety of school. I replied later by slipping a note in his locker but didn't sign it. A few days after that, I threw in a t-shirt I thought he would like. He didn't know who it was from until weeks later when he finally wore it to school to see if anyone said something. My BFF at the time did, and he realized it was me. Super creepy on my end. We ended up dating for a day before we broke up because we were stupid kids. Now 15 years later, we reconnected and are now married. So, totally worked as planned. A girl that I was about to start dating mentioned she really wanted to go to New Zealand at some point in her life, to a group of people, not even just to me, so I immediately priced plane tickets and lodgings to New Zealand for a honeymoon. Then, unbelievably, before we actually started dating, I told her that I'd priced our honeymoon. My defense was that if things did work out, New Zealand was so expensive I'd have to start saving then. We still dated, but only for about 2 months, and neither of us have been to New Zealand. I let my mum purchase custom matching airbrushed shirts of 2 people kissing, with my girlfriend's and my name on them. I'd report my mum to CPS if she suggested that. I met the love of my life at age 17, aka I started getting my brains effed out for the first time. She was not shy talking about her prior boyfriend who had a super huge hog that she claimed was very painful. Of course, there were other details about their relationship that she shared too, and she was complicated and we had a lot of fights which I couldn't get my head around. At some point, I decided it would be a good idea for him and me to talk and compare notes. So, I wrote him a letter proposing this. Mutual friends reported that he was utterly flabbergasted by this, but he approached me and said, "What would you like to talk about?" I think I babbled for 20 minutes after that, but I have no further recollection. Looking back, what the frick was I thinking? That is a very bold move, but honestly, I think I can say that it was the best possible reaction you could have gotten from him under the circumstances. I think most people could have reasonably expected silence or violence. Incidentally, that's my band name. I was so nervous on the way home. Being 14, his dad drove us to my house to drop me off. I leaned over to kiss him on the cheek. A quick peck, and then I threw up his mum's fajitas all over myself. We finally did the deed when at a party at my friend's house whose parents were home. The mother knocked on the door and said, "What's going on?" We didn't stop. I was too immature to talk about us one day doing the deed, so I'd giggle and say, "Duh, you know." Had my first relationship at age 17. We were each other's first for everything. Basically only ever gave him hand fun times because he wasn't very hygienic. He insisted on keeping his underwear on, so I'd have to rub him over his boxers. He'd splooge inside his boxers and then leave them on for the rest of the day. The odd time he didn't have boxers on, he'd grab a sock and splooge inside of it, and throw it in the laundry pile. His mum did all of the laundry. So disgusting every time I think about it. He French kissed me after eating a bacon double cheeseburger with onions and all sorts of other stinky stuff. I told him I had a bad experience with French kissing with a guy before him, lies, he was my first kiss obviously, and I would appreciate it if he never did it again. Bonus cringe, I rubbed vapor rub near my eyes to make myself cry when I broke up with him and told him I was overwhelmed and needed to focus on school. I was in 8th grade. Back in 8th grade, I could not wrap my head around the obvious signals he was giving me that he was not as into the relationship as I was. I was extremely clingy and would draw doodles of us and write the mushiest notes to him on the daily. I would quiz him on what he liked to talk to me about on AIM every night. Fishing for compliments from him constantly, making up new pet names every week. My best friend was dating his best friend, who most likely felt the same reluctance due to intensity, and we would arrange double dates that were mostly me and her trying to find a way to corner the boys and make out, which was extremely creepy behavior looking back on it. Reading my journal from that year is horrifying. I wish I could go back and apologize for the cringe. If you're reading this, sorry about that crap, Mitchy Poo. I know I'm not alone in the shame of horrible obsessive behavior. Since so many people have asked, I've dug up my journal I mentioned from my basement storage. Kinda wish I'd actually buried it reading it again. The entry I'm posting seems to condense how awful I was into a short and terrible package. How can someone so terrible be so popular? Hopefully the real world isn't like that. Sigh, spelled out in the book. I heart Mitch. On AIM, AOL Instant Messenger tonight, I asked if he liked the semi-French and he was extremely vague. Maybe I'm going too fast. I hope he liked. I thought I might have seen him wiping his mouth on his sleeve. How terrible would that be? At least he loves me back. I really hope I'm not a bad kisser. I love kissing. So if I was bad at it, wouldn't it be kind of hypocrisy or ironic? I don't know. What scares me is that high school is next year. Well, I think I can probably experiment with Mitch. I don't think he'd mind, smiley face. I've never made out with someone before. I wonder what it's like. Is it gross? Is it like animalistic, like grrr? Mitch is so sweet. I want to be with him all the time. Asterisk, groan in pleasure, asterisk. When we were watching the movie at Tom's house, where I got the semi-French, he put his hand on the curve of my waist and it felt so good. It took all I had to not just start making out with him right then. I think that's like a pleasure point on women. I'll have to find out where his is. No, I'm not going to start groping his crotch. Something a little more innocent, please, with a Z. Although me and all my friends have this inside joke about how I'm his leather lady. Lol, can you imagine? Whoosh. Kiss me, Mitch, now. I want to talk to him so bad, but it's kind of late. I'm going to have to find a really good place for this journal. I don't really know who I'm writing to. Hopefully not my future kids. They'll be all like, gasp, Mom was really bad. I'm not bad. I just have lust issues. Lol. To the person who's reading this, don't judge me. I was walking her home in our neighborhood. She says her parents aren't home. I say, cool, you have the whole house to yourself. And I walked back home, wondering if I'd ever get the chance to touch her chest. To answer the big question, yes, I did, eventually. Then we did more and were pretty bad at it. Then she faked a stalker in order to drive a wedge between me and my best friend, so I stopped seeing her. Up and down experiences all round, but hey, I got to do stuff to her for a while, once I caught on. We'd been texting back and forth, so I knew going to his house I'd lose my virginity. The guy opens the door wearing a full suit for the occasion and escorts me holding my hand into his bedroom. Jesus Christ. To give some context, it wasn't his first time. We'd been dating for around 2 months. I was determined and did go through with the deed. And what happened after was way worse than the suit. The guy had apparently told the entire neighborhood he was getting laid, and 3 or 4 of his friends broke into the house through the terrace in the middle of the deed. I promise I'm not making this up. After the whole episode was over, he left to the friend's party without inviting me. So he wasn't really a gentleman after all, as the suit had suggested. A couple of days later, we broke up. At the time, I felt horrible, but now it makes for the juiciest story. First real girlfriend in high school, we used to talk over the voice calls on MSN Messenger late at night. She just wanted to hear my voice, and I very quickly ran out of things to say, so she said I should just read whatever book I had around. She spent the next 30 minutes listening to my Your New Getaway Computer and How to Use It booklet. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.